The answer is yes. We'll start our time off with the end in mind. Are you truly worth it? The answer is yes. Today we're going to talk about the principle of the 99 and the 1. Are we worth it? Yes, we are worth everything. This morning, as we examine a parable that Jesus taught, let us remember, we just came out of Easter a couple of weeks ago and have seen some incredible things happen. It's been amazing Easter, and last week the testimonies that we heard. But there's always a saying that kind of goes around that time. It's all within that area. And that is, if you were the only one here on earth, would Jesus still come and die for you? The answer is, now that's kind of hard to fathom if you don't understand how important you are. That his stripes would have been for you. That his pain would have been for you. That he would have hung on the cross for you and nobody else. He would have looked down and said, "This I do for you." And we would have been the only one and looked around and said, "For me? Yes." But it's a little confusing and it's a little odd if you don't understand your life makes a difference. Your existence on this place, as was challenged by the video that we just had, your existence is real and is everything. Some of us bring so much baggage to our value of the one that we can't even believe it. But Jesus said very clearly, you are worth everything. I was thinking about it as I was kind of preparing this whole thing, and I was remembering, well, what are some other examples when the one became everything? And you know what came to mind? The story of baby Jessica. It's interesting that her whole name was not what was quote-unquote important at the time. It was baby Jessica that literally stopped the narrative of the world for 58 hours. And her story became the story. But to help you remember, back in 1987, baby Jessica was playing in the backyard of an aunt. And back there was a tube of some kind that she fell down. Now imagine this, a young baby falling down 22 feet of tube that is only 8 inches in diameter. Now it was not immediately that it came, but just through time they discovered that she's down there with no real way of knowing how to reach her, what to do. And yet, she was in incredible need. She was young. Some of the paramedics were saying we could tell her mood. There was times when she would just whimper. There was times when she would just cry. There were times when she was upset, and she'd let it be known that she was mad about being down in that hole. But here's what I want you to understand, and here's what I think is pertinent to our time here this morning. Literally, the world stopped for 58 hours, and the only thing that was of the utmost importance was one person named baby Jessica who needed help to get out of a pipe. Furthermore, what I want you to understand is this. There was a connection. What happened is that there was a brand new network, and you're going to know the name, a brand new network called CNN. How many know CNN? But it was the first 24-hour, 7-day-a-week news network at the time. This is their footage that we're looking at. And they picked it up for all that time. So for all these hours, you see the time clock there, 57, 55. For all those hours, they're watching and saying, what are they going to do? But as a result of that cast, that one individual story didn't stay one story. There was people literally all over the world that were giving money to try to buy the equipment or whatever they needed to get baby Jessica out of the well. On top of that, there was people all over this country that were engineers and professors of engineers that got on airplanes and flew here to this location and say, can I help? I have an idea. I think we can do something. So they brought all their ideas together, and you see cranes, and you see the look is just so many massive people. But the reality is, all of this happened because of the value of one person. Because baby Jessica needed help, and the world was going to say, we're going to do something about it. We're going to make it happen. So then what happens is you start to begin, is it truly the value of one? The answer is yes. And as they came together, you saw a world that was waiting for a miracle of one person. And as you watch and as you see, in a moment or two, it comes up, the baby comes out, and everything is okay. And then go ahead and put up the sound just a little bit. Let's listen for just a second.
You can see it moving. Both the rope and the cable are coming up at the same inch per foot at the same time.
Rodney, I think I'm hearing the crowd react back there too as well.
Yes.
Getting louder.
We've got her. We're getting the indication. We're getting the indication. People are seeing it.
Thank God.
Thank God.
Seeing it. There she is. There she is. And her eyes are open. You can see her eyes open.
Bless her
She's
heart.
blinking.
Bless her heart.
She's blinking.
58 hours exactly. Thank God.
58 hours.
Bless your little heart.
That is excellent.
Oh my
That's
God.
wonderful. Thank God for that.
What you need to understand is that the world didn't stop
There you see her.
for a moment and didn't rejoice in that moment because it was a good idea. Didn't rejoice because engineers figured something out. Didn't rejoice that equipment came that was needed. You guys may remember, that can recall the story. There was cranes there. There was all kinds of stuff there. They didn't rejoice because of all of that. People in Europe didn't rejoice because of that. People in Latin America didn't rejoice because of that. People in Africa, people all over the world did not rejoice because of that. They rejoiced because of the value of one person, and that person was saved. This morning, Jesus is saying, you are worth everything. You are worth everything. And the way he does it is through a parable that we're going to look at this morning. So if you do me the favor, open your Bibles to Luke chapter 15. And while you look there, I just want to kind of make a couple of comments, kind of set it all up. Why did Jesus use parables? Why did Jesus use stories? You know, here you're talking about the theologian of theologians, I guess you could say, or the object of theology, and yet he talked in stories. And he kind of put these things together, and I would say, or I know, is because he's trying to get a message across. But he tells stories because he doesn't want anybody to not understand what he's talking about. While you continue to turn to Luke 15, I want you to hear Jesus' words in Matthew 13. His disciples are asking him, saying, what is this all about? What do you do? I don't understand this. And Jesus said to his disciples, verse 10, you don't need to turn there, Matthew 13:10. I want you to hear this. His disciples came and asked him, why do you use parables when you talk to people? Verse 11, he, Jesus, replied, you are permitted to understand secrets of the kingdom of heaven, but others are not. Verse 12 says, to those who listen to my teachings, more understanding will be given. I would say to those who listen to my parables, more understanding will be given, and they will have an abundance of knowledge. That is why Jesus spoke in parables. He wanted everybody to understand what was being said. Not for any other reason that the kingdom or the secrets of the kingdom are that important. That nobody misunderstand. That nobody walk away questioning, what in the world was that all about? But that everybody would understand. So let's look at our key verse today, the parable of the lost sheep. From the narrative or from the theme, you are worth everything. Parable of the lost sheep says, verse 1, tax collectors and others, notorious sinners, often came to listen to Jesus teach. This made the Pharisees and the teachers of religious law complain that he was associated with sinful people, even eating with them. So Jesus told them a story. If a man has 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what will he do? Won't he leave the 99 others and in the wilderness and go to search for the one that is the lost until he finds it? Continuing. And when he had found it, he will joyfully carry it home to on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, because I have found my lost sheep. In the same way, there is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Jesus is setting up the principle of the 99 in the one. What he's beginning to teach and what he's beginning to show them is that the one is truly worth everything. And that's the kingdom narrative that he's trying to implant into their spirits. He's trying to implant into their heart, trying to make them understand, listen, that's what's going on. But it's more than that. He's not using the parable just to confound the Pharisees. He's using the parable to speak to the crowd. He's using the parable to say, look, you are that lost sheep, and you are worth everything, and I will go anywhere to get you. I will go anywhere to share with you the love and the hope that is found in the gospel message of Jesus Christ. Anywhere. Why? Because you are worth, oh, you got it. Because you are worth, tell your neighbor, you're worth everything. Tell your other neighbor, you're worth everything. As we look at it, there's some principles that I think Jesus is unpacking through this parable. And let's go ahead and take a look at them. So number one, you are worth everything because God has a plan for your life. I want to say that again. You are worth everything because God has a plan for your life. And for just a moment, I want to personalize it. I want to set us off on the right trajectory this morning. I want you to understand I'm talking to and about you. I'm not talking about the collective you. I'm not talking about TC the family, although I love TC the family. We'll talk about more about that in just a moment. But I want you to know we are talking about you. So I want you to read that same line that you see on the screen behind me, and those watching by the TV over there, a computer, however it is you're watching, I want you to make it personal this morning and say, I am worth everything because God has a plan and a purpose for my life. I want you to read it in that context together. Here we go. I am worth everything because God has a plan and a purpose for my life. Say that again, a purpose for my life. You know, Jeremiah the prophet wrote down these incredible words in verse 20, chapter 29, verse 11, for he says, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Jesus is talking about you. I know the plans I have for you. Isn't it interesting? In other portions of the area, there's no problem saying, I have plans for the kingdom of God, or I have plans for this, or I have plans for that. There's no problem with that. But right there, God, through his prophet, splits it down and says, look, this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you, and I have plans for you. Here's what I also like about that. There's no qualifiers in that. Jesus didn't say, because you, because that, because you've lived a perfect life, because you've stood a perfect thing, because I like you, because I think you're handsome, because I think you're pretty, because I have a plan for you. No. He says, I have a plan for you. That's something we can take to the bank. I have a plan and a purpose for you. Here's what else came to mind as I thought about that. Here's the cool part about it. There's a confidence in the statement, right? A confidence in the statement that says, I have a plan for you. And here's what I think is neat. I'm going to go down there. Shall we go down there? Here's what's really cool about that. Oh, listen to me. Here's what's really cool about that. God has a plan for you. Listen to me. Hit your neighbor. Hit him as hard as you can. No, don't do that. God has a plan for you, and nothing can derail that plan. Because God is the formation of that plan. God put that plan together. Now, you know us, right? We try to make a mess of it, don't we? I get that. Nobody's good at messing us up than us, right? Nobody's better than that. But God says, I have a plan for you. And this is when you get all King James. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. But isn't that cool? God has a plan for you, and nothing can derail that plan. Man, and you begin to stand in that, and you begin to take confidence in that God has a plan for my life. And oh my Lord, I messed up again. Man, and I don't know what I'm going to do. God says, I have a plan for your life. How can you have a plan for my life? I'm tore up from the floor up. It's the only cool term I know. You got to say something cool. Noel G was here last week. Got to be cool. Watch me, right, Mika? What are that, guys? I want to tell you something. You know, I look like a fool. But God has a plan for your life. And not even you can derail that plan. Now, many of us need to get in line with that plan, right? It's time to grab hold of that plan. It's time to begin to place it and believe it. Why? Because you are worth everything. You are worth God's best plan. You are worth God's best purpose. You are worth God's best in your life. Because you are worth everything. So now read it again. Jeremiah back. Thank you. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. What's that song that we love to sing? Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand. But I know who holds the future, and I know who holds my hand. That's the promise that he's talking about there. That's the anointing that he's talking about there. God has a plan for your life. Personalize it. God has a plan for me. Next, you are worth everything. Next, you are worth everything because you are irreplaceable. Let that soak in for a second. You are worth everything because you are irreplaceable. You. All your stuff, all your noise, all your junk, whatever, I don't know. All the good stuff too. I keep picking on the bad stuff. All the great stuff. Your personality, your talents, all the cool stuff you can do. That's awesome. All of that is irreplaceable. Look at what Psalm 139 says. What is happening, the psalmist is kind of reflecting on all this stuff about God. He's just awed by God. And then these words come out in verse 14. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I like that. Know that full well. See, so he's just in awe of God. He's just in awe of who he is. He's in awe of what he's done. He's in awe of the character that God has formed him to be. And he says, man, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. And if you begin to examine it more, it says, you knew me before I was even born. You formed me in my mama's belly. You knew me, you shaped me, you grabbed me by your righteous right hand, and I am fearfully and wonderfully made. You are worth everything. Now look here, let's go back to our scripture and look what it said in verse 5. And when he has found it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. When he arrives, he will call together his friends and neighbors, and saying, rejoice with me, because I found my lost sheep. Notice that. You're irreplaceable. To the point that when he finds you, he says, let's party. Wow. That's my mom's principle. My mom is, let's party, man. Everything is a party. Because she's happy for what God is doing always, and she wants to rejoice in his life. But Jesus is exempling it by saying, look, when one is found, all of heaven rejoices. But what he's doing is he's planting, as it says here, Jesus is revealing the principle of the one. He's beginning to form within their minds, you are important. You are real. You are irreplaceable. Isn't that amazing? You are real. You are irreplaceable. You are everything. And he's beginning to just shape it and mold it by saying, all of heaven rejoices. A party happens. A big old party happens when one comes. Number 3, you are worth everything because without you, we are not complete. You are worth everything because without you, we are not complete. Here's what I want you to know. I'm going to go down here again. Here's what I want you to see about this. You're replaceable and incomplete. Here's what I want you to know. There's not anyone else like you, right? You're fearfully and wonderfully made. Cool. That. Complete means we don't make sense without you. We don't make sense without you. Whatever it is you bring to us, we are better because of it. We are better because of you, because you are worth everything. Look at this. It says right here, which of you, man, if you had 100 sheep and lost one of them, wouldn't leave the 99 in the wilderness and go after the one that was lost until he found it? Question mark. Now, here's what I want you to understand. Jesus is doing 2 things right there. Number 1, he's giving the value of the one to everybody that's listening. But number 2, he is challenging the prevailing thought because he knows something's going on there and he wants to challenge it. Remember, shepherds are businessmen. Okay, they're shepherds and we talk about that and all that's really cool. But there's a business to keeping all your shepherd around. The people there that would have been listening, that would be the 100, would have said this: wait a minute, you have 100 and you lost one? Guess what? Good luck. See you later. They would not go after the one. They would not. They'd let the sheep go and they would call it a cost of doing business. Because why? You leave at risk the 99. It's like, oh, you found your one, but the 99 are gone now. You know, it wouldn't make business sense to them. But Jesus is challenging it by saying, no, you would leave the 99 and you would go and find the one. He's challenging at the very core everything that they believe to be true. Why? Because the one is irreplaceable. Without that one, there's not 100. Without that one, they are not complete. Without that one, they are not whole. Jesus is saying, come on. The one is worth everything. This is my daughter-in-law and my son at Christmas. They are obviously having a Bible study, as you can see. And they're doing very serious stuff. But I was remembering something. And I'll go quickly here. We were at the Orange County Fairgrounds having a good time together and walking around and everything. And all of a sudden, Chris and I looked at each other and realized we didn't know where Jonathan was. It's like, where's Jonathan? I don't know. He was with you. I don't know. He was with you. No, he was with you. Isn't that fun when people blame each other back and forth? He was with you. Donnell! You know, it's like, you know, he's gone. So right away, the panic sets in and we start walking around and we start looking. Where's Johnny? I don't know. Did he go to the bathroom? You check all the different normal spots, and finally we go to a policeman and say, look, where's the lost and found? Or can you ask on your radio, is there somebody named Johnny lost? So he went on his radio, he did his thing, and he said, no, there's nobody named Johnny that's lost. Well, we're beginning to panic. We're beginning to panic because Jonathan's only 4 years old, and he's gone, you know, and he's, what are we going to do? This is a big place. You know, huge. It's the Orange County Fairgrounds. How are we going to find him? So finally, we get to a police out. We're walking around. We're doing all the search and everything. We finally find the lost and found. We go to the counter and say, by chance, is there a young boy named Johnny here? They look on their paper. They say, no, there's no Johnny here. It's like, okay, well, can you check again? We've checked everywhere. The counter. They say, well, you know what? We don't have a Johnny, but we have a Tony. Tony? What do you mean a Tony? Yeah, Tony deLeon. It's like, wait a minute, can we see him? We think his name's Johnny. Well, what you have to understand is that Johnny, when he was a baby, young, used to talk like this. So when they said, what's your name? He said, Tony. They translated that as Tony. He said, Tony. And then deLeon, forget it. You try to say that when you're 2, 3 years old, you know? deLeon, whatever. So they didn't know it was him. So finally we went back, and there he was. He was happy as a kite because it was all the free candy he could eat. They were nice to him, and he was sitting there, suavecito, right? So what's the first thing a parent does? Get mad at the kid, right? No, we did that. We did that. I'm confessing. Pastor Tommy prayed for me. I got mad at Johnny for getting lost. Where were you? Papa, Daddy, I wanted to see the bees. It's like, oh, my Lord. So then after we're mad, the relief hit that we found Tony, Johnny, or whatever his name is. So obviously you have a little problem because you're trying to prove that it is your kid because we're looking for Jonathan, and that's Tony, self-identified as Tony. But yet, no, they gave him to us. Everything was cool on that, right? But here's what I want you to see. Here's what I want you to see. When we lost Johnny, we didn't say to each other, no more. We have 3 more. That's enough. Makes more room in the car. Johnny kind of eats a lot. I don't think that's going to stop him. Good, we're fine. Let's go, man. Let's go before he finds us, right? No. The reality is we were not complete without Johnny. There was no way we were going to leave that fairground without our son. My wife was ready to get the National Guard. She was ready to get everything. She was ready to shut that joint down because Johnny was gone. He's worth everything, and we are incomplete without him. That's what Jesus is teaching. He's saying, yeah, I got a bunch of people in this family, but I'm not complete without you. So we were going home with Johnny. Yeah, we were mad at him. I don't think I spanked him. I probably felt like it. But we were going home. And yes, my son Johnny was bragging on all the free candy to his brothers and sisters. So there you go. But we were incomplete without Jonathan, and there was no way I was going to leave without him. I'll go anywhere to find him, to hold him, to kiss him, and to love him. And that's what Jesus is saying to you this morning. You are worth everything. Next. You are worth everything. It's going to sound like I'm playing funny on words. You're worth everything because you are worth everything. Here's what I mean by that statement. It sounds funny, I know. All I want to say is the value is already inherently there. You're already worth everything. And that's the reality, that's the truth, and that's the hope that lies within you. You're worth everything because you're worth everything. Check out this video here.
You're struggling mentally, you don't know if you're ever going to make it out. Here's a bit of reassurance for you. A common question I get asked after my speaking engagements or in person or interviews or podcasts are, Tove, what's a piece of advice you can give to someone that is struggling? And my answer to that is focus on being the comeback story.
Yes.
For me, I was at a point where I didn't think I was going to get out mentally, and I've just turned those setbacks into setups. Now, it doesn't matter how many setbacks. I've posted this before through a picture, but this is honestly it. It doesn't matter how many setbacks you come in life. Be the comeback story. Defy the odds. And whoever's listening to this right now, you are worth everything. I always use Michael Phelps or Ian Thorpe in my keynote, and they're classified as superhumans. They also went through a state of depression at one time. Now I thought, how are these superhumans going through such emotions? Because they're also human beings too. That's the thing. They have this inability to swim insane speeds. They're human beings. So you are worth everything. You listening right now, you are worth everything. I believe in you. Be that comeback story. Prove everyone wrong. Defy the odds. And have a wonderful day. I have faith in you. Bye. You're struggling.
You are worth
mentally.
everything. I'm going to close my time with you by asking a question to you. Is it time for you to come to terms with that? Is it time for you to understand that, yes, Jesus gave everything for you? I know I'm looking at a crowd, but you. If I could look at each and every one of you in your face, I'd say you. This morning, Jesus gave everything because you are worth it. Close your eyes and stand with me if you will. Father, I thank you for the moment. I thank you for the reality that is found in the statement that we are worth everything. That you would have came and died for us. You would have came to bring hope for just one of us. The principle of the 99 and the one proves that fact, my Lord. So, Father, this morning I stand before this incredible group of people, and I ask that your Spirit would talk to them. I ask that your voice would tug upon their heart and say, this I do for you. My Father, I ask, as we consider all of this, it's today the day. And this morning, everyone with every eye closed, every head bowed, I cannot walk away this morning by not giving you the opportunity to grab hold of the gift of Jesus Christ, who came so that you could be saved, who came and died because you, as an individual, are worth it. And for one reason or another, you've not been able to come to that truth. You've not been able to come to that reality. But the Lord, all the time I have been speaking, has been tugging on your heart. I'm going to ask you, if you would like to receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior this morning, the one who gave everything for you, I would ask you to raise your hand and catch my attention. With every eye closed and every head bowed, if you would like to receive Jesus this morning, lift your hand and catch my attention. I'm on the ground, so I'm going to try to catch everybody. Yes, God bless you. Who else? Who else? I'm going to give you just a couple of more minutes. I don't want to go too quickly. I don't want to go too quickly. Yes, God bless you. Give me that hand. Ask you, two brave, incredible souls, to do one more thing. Would you join me up here? I'll stand here with you. You can bring the person that brought you. You can bring him with you this morning. Join me up here. I'd love to pray with you. Yes, join me. Yes. 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 Pastor Catterson. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It is an honor to be part of this incredible movement. But I want you to know you are worth everything. I want you to know you are worth everything. And your life will never be the same until you leave this place. We have shared this altar. We know the miraculous power that comes from it. Let's pray. I'm going to ask you to repeat a prayer after me. Close your eyes. Repeat a prayer after me. Say, Father, I accept you into my heart. Thank you for giving me everything. I receive your love. I receive your hope. And I receive in your Son's holy name I pray. I would like to pray for you, friends. Father, thank you. Father, it's hard to even fathom the value that they are to you, but the Bible is very clear. All of heaven is rejoicing right now. We join that celebration and we rejoice together. Pray a blessing over their life. In your Son's amazing name we pray. Amen. We have an awesome, come on guys. One more step. I want to shake your hand. Of course I want to shake your hand. This awesome young man over here is Fernando. He's going to walk with you, and others will walk with you over here to this room. We want to put a Bible in your hands, and we want to say, yay! We want to let the party begin. God bless you guys. Go ahead and go that way.